The next piece we're going to look at is we'll talk a bit around this idea of identity change. This ends up being the hardest part of building systems. It's actually changing your culture, because unless you change the identity and you start to see yourself as a systems person, you'll ultimately just end up defaulting back to some of your old habits. And you can start with really good intentions, but then you might start to lose momentum. You get distracted, you don't quite follow through, and you don't get the results that you were looking for, and you might wrongly reach the conclusion that systems don't work. And it's not that they don't work, it's that you might not have persisted with them long enough, you didn't install the right habits, and that didn't get passed through to the team, and you didn't give the systems long enough to have that compound effect. So we need to go from and make that switch. Like, I love seeing Alison back here again, because she went from hey, we're going to try systems for a month and we see how we go, to we're a systems driven business. This is how we do things here. And I'm going to keep showing up and keep chipping away at this. And this is where, like I said, Michael mentioned, don't let the business owner off the hook, because the business owner, the leadership team, the operations people, the systems champion, the team is going to look to those team members and see what they're doing. And that's really what shapes the company culture. If the business owner and the leadership team have poor systems habits, that's just going to get replicated throughout the business. So we need to make sure that, it'll start with you, everybody who's attending here. You need to have a systems identity, and you need the beliefs that support this. And what ends up happening is it starts with you, but your company culture ends up being the average of all of the different attitudes and behaviors of your team. So if we're looking to build a systems-driven business, the sooner that we can start to build positive attitudes and beliefs to systems, the easier it becomes. So that's a bit about, we need to talk about, well, how do we do that? How can we engineer this? And I'm just going to swap to here. And I'll just make sure. There we go. Okay. So thinking about this idea of your identity and, who are you? At the core of it, you'll have this idea. Let me make that a bit bigger. You'll have this idea of your identity. They're I am statements, things like, I am a non-smoker. I am a great reader. I am organized. I am forgetful. I am not good at spelling. Like, I am a vegetarian. Like, the I am statements is the core of what your identity is. And the ring around that ends up being your beliefs. Because if you have a belief that I am a non-smoker, you will have a set of beliefs that support that identity. I believe that smoking kills you. I believe that smoking is gross. I believe that smoking is a waste of money. Now, all identities get supported by these different beliefs. And then those beliefs end up informing the actions that you take. So if you're a non-smoker and you believe that smoking kills you, well, you're going to avoid smoky areas. And if someone offers you a cigarette, you might say, I don't smoke. If you're a vegetarian and you believe that consuming meat is economically unsound, or that it's, you believe that killing animals is wrong, you're going to shop at animal-friendly stores and you're going to lobby for animal rights. This idea that your identity will then shape your beliefs, and then those beliefs are really going to influence what your actions are. And it's this reinforcing loop. You've got your identity. I am a systems person. You might have beliefs. I believe that systems are the most important asset in business. And see how the belief, if I believe that systems are the most important asset in my business, I'm going to take certain actions that reinforce that. Now, when you understand that loop, and the idea that when you take little actions also, those actions then reinforce your identity. So if you want to change your identity, we want to start to build evidence by taking little actions that we are a certain way. Because you might come here and go, oh yes, I'm a lover of systems. But we need to make sure that you believe it at your core. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to take these actions. And if you have a series of little actions that you have taken over a period of time, that will help you form the identity that I am a systems-driven person. I work in a systems-driven business. And we want to understand that a little bit more so that you can then start to shape your identity and use some of these ideas to hack the thinking of your team to build up the company culture and the identity that you are a systems-driven business. So for me, if I'm going to share my identity and some of my positive beliefs around systems, I believe that I am the owner of a systems-driven business. You might believe that I work inside a systems-driven business. Think about what that identity is, and then my beliefs that support this. Now, this is in the book, for me, or in the workbook, you'll see, for me, I think business systems are the essential building blocks to business. I believe that your business isn't broken. It's just that you struggle with repeatability and making things recurring. We need to capture what's currently working and make it repeatable. I believe that every business problem is a systems problem. I believe that it's always the system's fault. I believe that you can get extraordinary results by putting ordinary people into well-designed systems. I believe that systems development isn't a one and done. This is a way of being, a way of doing. I believe that accountability, transparency, and measurement produce a results-driven business. And I believe that the financial benefit of great systems far exceeds the cost of their implementation. I believe that the value of a business is found in solid systems that are consistently producing the desired results. And I believe that business systems are your most important asset. Now, you can imagine if I believe all of these things, how I'm going to act. If I believe that systems are the most important asset in a business, I'm going to act accordingly. I think in terms of systems. I record everything. I always ask, do we have a system for that? I look for the systems solution first. I showcase great systems. I hire a systems champion. I put systems as a meeting agenda item. And you can imagine that how this loop works. Once you start to articulate what identity you want, and you understand that you start to build the beliefs around that, and you think about what are the actions that you would need to take that would then support that identity, the hack in this is to focus on the actions. So what are little tiny actions that we can build, little habits around systems, great system habits. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we need to identify how do we build little tiny system habits for you and your team to start to build up the evidence that you own a systems-driven business or you work in a systems-driven business. How would you act if you believed that every business problem is a systems problem? How would you act if you believed that systems were your most important asset? And where the rubber hits the road for this, I remember Dave Porter was sharing a story with me. He owns Portervac, and he was one of our clients. And the point at which this changed for him is when he changed his identity. They're a roof gutter cleaning company. They tried to systemize. They never really made it stick before. He tried and then kind of gave up. He said, I am not a systems person. I can't own a systems-driven business. We can't really put systems into place because the team don't follow them anyway. He believed that he's going to need hundreds of systems, or that the systems aren't going to get the feedback and the response from his team because they're tradies, and that's just not what they do. That was his belief. And then he discovered systemology. We challenged some of those assumptions and those beliefs. And then he went on the process. He hired a systemologist. He trained up a systems champion. And over a period of time, he built up these little tiny actions which started to reinforce for him that he could own a systems-driven business. It started to reinforce that identity. And the point at which it changed for him, he said, was when a truck got returned, normally his default response would be, if the truck wasn't clean or it didn't have petrol or it wasn't ready to go for tomorrow, he would yell at the staff member. But his identity changed and he was a systems-driven business owner. The truck got returned, and rather than yelling at the staff, he thought, what's the systems solution here? I need to put a checklist in place so that when people return the trucks, they have to complete the 10-point checklist before they can return the keys. I make sure that the car is clean, it's filled with petrol, all the equipment is there, it's ready to go for tomorrow. And that's the shift in, when he recognized that what his identity was, he started to take the actions to support that. And it was the default response. The default response, because his identity was, I own a systems-driven business, was to go, well, someone who owns a systems-driven business is probably going to create a checklist here. And that's why this is quite important. And there are some ways that we can hack and work on this.